Hi, this is a tutorial for playing a scenario in Wargame Constructor. First, are presented with a welcome screen of 4 choices, and the first one is to play a scenario, so we're going to try that. We're presented with a menu of all the different scenarios that are available. These ones come with the app, so if you had ones that you built yourself, they'd be on this list as well, but these are the ones that come with it. For purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to select the Winter War, the 1939 Soviet invasion of Finland. We'll play Finland. First thing is kind of zooms in on a Google map of the battlefield or the battle area. Some of the things you can see when we kind of zoom in, you can use all the same gestures you use on maps. This is Google Maps that it's based on. As you can see all the units, Finland is in blue, the Soviet Union is in red. In this case, because we're playing Finland, we can't see all the Soviet Union units. One of the settings for a scenario is how far your visibility goes, and our visibility doesn't expand far enough to be able to see them all. But some of the other things you see is blue flags in the background. The blue flags are victory locations. Those are kind of capturing those are kind of what leads to your victory. Or your defeat, depending on how things go for you. It also kind of guides the battle. It gives the AI a kind of a target to shoot for. In this case, we're going to try to, if we're Finland, we need to defend our blue flags and capture the red flag if necessary, or if we can. So that's the kind of the goal here. Some basic gameplay. First things first, you're going to want to know how to select a unit, and to do that you just pretty much put your finger on it and a yellow circle is drawn around it, and then details for the status of the unit is shown at the bottom. In this case it's the Finnish 1st Division. Gives you some firepower settings and some other information towards the bottom. One of the first things we want to learn how to do is how do I order this unit to move. And to order it to move is the arrow with the yellow circle around it. Kind of looks like a selected unit. You hit that and then you just select an area on the map that you want the thing to move to. And it will draw a path to that spot. Secondly, if I select a different unit, in this case the 5th Division, and I want to order it to attack an enemy unit, I select the button that says, after selecting that unit, I select the button that looks kind of like a lightning bolt, and then I select the unit that I wish it to attack. In this case, you can see at the bottom that my 5th Division has now been given orders to attack the 70th Rifle Division. If I want a unit to defend where it is, I select it, and then I hit the button that looks kind of like a shield, and that kind of gives that unit orders to defend that spot. As part of that order, it's going to start to build fortifications, which the higher the fortification setting, the harder it's going to be to dislodge that unit. But once a unit moves again, it loses all that fortification. So if you're going to defend a unit or use that defend button, you want to pretty much stay where you're at. The last item I want to show you here is how to split a unit. Units can be split only once. Essentially it's going to split into 4 different pieces. This is useful if you got a lot of ground to cover. Obviously your attack power and defense power for each individual unit is now much less than what it was, but sometimes it's useful to have more units rather than less. In this case, you can see one of the smaller units is the 8th Division, 2nd Brigade. And the whole grouping is the 8th Division. That's the 1st Brigade. Okay, so once you've given all your units orders, what you want to do is start your turn. And your turn can be started by hitting the kind of the VCR play button. And that essentially just tells it to execute the orders that you've been given. And it'll execute a certain period of time that's kind of been set up for the scenario. And then it stops. And at that point, you can judge and see did things happen the way that you wanted it to. You can see a couple more Soviet Union units kind of came into view. Afterwards, some of these other buttons, I'll tell you what those do. This button that looks like a shoulder strap with a couple stars on it. You might have noticed that the flags, the Finnish flag and the Soviet Union flags, are kind of in the background in a couple spots. Those are actually command level units. If I select those, you can see it selects a bunch of units. That's a kind of a command structure. And I can order those units to act as one by giving a order to those command units. You can order them to move and they'll all move as one. Order them to attack, they'll all attack as one. It's kind of like a quick way of giving orders to a lot of units at one time. This shoulder strap will essentially kind of toggles whether or not those command units are in view. Sometimes it just makes the map a little too busy to have those all showing. So sometimes it's just nice to turn it off. Some of these other buttons, this thing that looks like a grid, a lot of maps will have given pieces of terrain to it, like in this case there's some water. By toggling this, you can see it just makes the water a little bit bluer. The terrain is actually kind of very transparent, and sometimes you just want to make it pop a little bit just to be able to see. You know, terrain can be roads, elevated areas, impassable areas, water, bridges. It makes it just a little bit more visible. This button that looks like a range circle is essentially that. You press that and it will show you the firepower range of each individual units. Some units may, the extent of their weapons may reach a little farther than others. This kind of tells you how far it is that their weapons can reach, and anything that falls inside their weapons range will be fired on. This other button over here next to the weapons range kind of shows you where the front lines are. So it's just a kind of a toggle. The ruler button, you can select that and then you can just hit a couple, touch a couple areas on the map. It'll tell you how far it is between them. It's kind of useful in making some plans sometimes. This button that looks like a book, it's useful after you've executed a turn, because if you select that, sometimes you can't exactly tell everything that's happening, but in this case you can select a unit and like the 5th Division, and it'll tell everything that happened during that turn. In this case, it was attacking the Soviet 70th Rifle Division. A lot of stuff happens in the background, and if you check the log, you'll be able to, on a unit-by-unit basis, see what happened during that turn. This last button just allows you to change the map type that you want to see. Sometimes you want to see the hybrid map, which is kind of the default, but sometimes you just want to see the satellite map. Or you can turn it on to, essentially you can fight on any kind of background. it's you know, you don't want to see all the markers and cities and everything on the map. You just kind of want a background like this, but you can change it if you want. So once your turn is over, essentially you kind of look at the situation and you figure out what it is I want to do for my next turn. You're just trying to do your best to either win the game or not lose the game, depending on what your situation is. If you're Finland here, you're just trying not to lose. But it is possible to break through and capture that one flag. But your back is really against the wall when you're Finland in this one. Hopefully that's given you a good background to get started playing this game.